I, 32F, am dealing with a difficult situation involving my sister Sarah, 35F, and her husband Mike, 37M. I need to give a lot of background information so everyone understands how we got here and why this situation is tearing our family apart. Our family wasn't rich, but we were always close and happy. Mom was a kindergarten teacher who loved her job and spent her evenings baking cookies and helping us with homework. Dad worked as an engineer at the same company for 35 years. Sarah and I grew up sharing everything: clothes, secrets, and dreams. She was my best friend, not just my sister. Everything changed when Mom got diagnosed with aggressive cancer 5 years ago. She fought hard for 8 months but passed away when I was 25 and Sarah was 28. Dad was completely broken. They had been high school sweethearts and married for 40 years. He stopped eating properly, barely left the house, and threw himself into work to avoid dealing with his grief. Sarah and I tried everything to help him. We took turns staying at his house, made sure he ate regular meals, and tried to get him to join social groups for seniors at the local community center. I even moved closer to his neighborhood to help more. For 2 years, our weekends were spent caring for Dad and sorting through Mom's things, though he wouldn't let us touch her jewelry box. It contained her wedding ring, grandmother's pearls, and other family heirlooms that meant the world to him. About 2 years after Mom's death, Sarah met Mike at her workplace. She was working as an office manager at a financial advisory firm where Mike was a senior advisor. He seemed perfect at first, successful, charming, and appeared genuinely interested in our family stories. He would bring coffee to the office for Sarah every morning and send flowers to her desk every Friday. Dad liked that Mike would watch sports with him and talk about investments. After dating for just 6 months, they got married in a small ceremony. I thought it was too fast and tried to talk to Sarah about it, but she said she was in love and didn't want to wait. Dad was just happy to see Sarah smiling again, so he supported her decision. I kept my doubts to myself since everyone else seemed happy. The problems started slowly. Mike began offering to help Dad with his finances, saying he could get better returns on Dad's retirement savings. Dad had been struggling with keeping track of his accounts since Mom died. She had always handled the household finances. Sarah convinced Dad to let Mike manage his money, saying it would give him one less thing to worry about. I had concerns but stayed quiet because Dad trusted Mike and Sarah was so insistent. Last year, while helping Dad prepare his tax returns, I noticed something odd. There were large monthly transfers from his retirement account to an unfamiliar bank account. When I asked Dad about them, he had no idea what I was talking about. He thought his money was being invested in conservative mutual funds, which is what Mike had promised. I spent weeks investigating and discovered Mike had been systematically stealing from Dad's retirement fund. He had been transferring between $5,000 and $15,000 every month for over a year, totaling nearly $200,000. He covered his tracks by sending Dad fake investment statements showing his money was growing steadily. When I confronted Mike with the evidence, he first tried to deny everything. Then he claimed it was all a misunderstanding and the money was in special high-yield investments. I didn't buy it and showed Dad all the proof, bank statements, transfer records, and the fake documents Mike had created. Dad was devastated. He had trusted Mike not just with his money, but with his daughter's happiness. Sarah refused to believe any of it. She accused me of doctoring the documents because I was jealous of her marriage. She said I had always been competitive with her and couldn't stand to see her happy. This hurt more than anything. We had always been so close. Dad wanted to press criminal charges, but Sarah begged him not to. She cried for hours, saying it would destroy their marriage and her career at the firm if people found out. Dad eventually agreed not to go to the police, but he cut off all contact with Mike and told Sarah she could only visit alone. Things got even worse 3 months ago. Dad called me in tears one morning. He had finally decided to look through Mom's jewelry box, thinking about giving me her wedding ring since I had just gotten engaged. The box was empty. All of Mom's jewelry, her wedding ring, the pearls that had been in our family for generations, the diamond earrings Dad gave her on their 30th anniversary, everything was gone. When we asked Sarah and Mike about it, Mike claimed he knew nothing. Sarah defended him aggressively, saying we were trying to frame him because we never accepted him into the family. She suggested maybe Dad had misplaced the jewelry or one of his housekeepers had taken it. This was absurd. Dad had kept that box locked in his bedroom and only we knew where the key was kept. Dad was never the same after that. He stopped eating properly again and his health declined rapidly. Last month, he had a massive heart attack and passed away before Sarah or I could get to the hospital. When his will was read, we discovered he had added a specific provision stating that Mike was not to attend his funeral under any circumstances. Now Sarah is threatening to skip Dad's funeral if Mike isn't allowed to attend. She's been calling and texting constantly, saying I turned Dad against them and ruined their relationship in his final years. She says I'm being cruel and denying her the chance to grieve properly with her husband by her side. Some of our relatives think I should just let Mike come to keep the peace. They say Dad isn't here anymore to know the difference, and it would help Sarah heal. But others support my decision to honor Dad's final wishes, saying Mike lost the right to attend when he betrayed Dad's trust. I'm standing firm on this. This man stole our father's retirement money and our mother's precious jewelry. He has shown no remorse and never apologized. Dad made his wishes clear, and I intend to honor them. But watching my sister choose this man over our family again and again is breaking my heart. Ida for refusing to let him attend the funeral? Update 1 first, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Reading your responses helped me feel less alone in this situation. A lot has happened in the past 2 weeks, and things have gotten even more complicated than I imagined. The day after I made my post, I received a private message from a woman named Linda. She said she was Mike's ex-wife and had seen my post through a mutual friend who follows this subreddit. At first, I was skeptical, but she sent me photos and documentation proving her identity. What she told me turned my whole world upside down. According to Linda, Mike had done exactly the same thing to her family 10 years ago. She sent me court documents showing he had been convicted of financial fraud after stealing nearly $150,000 from her elderly parents while managing their retirement accounts. He served 18 months in prison and was ordered to pay $300,000 in restitution, which he never fully paid. Linda said her parents had to sell their home and move in with her because of what Mike did to them. The similarities between our situations were chilling. Linda explained how Mike had charmed her entire family, offering to help manage their finances because of his expertise. He even used the same excuse about special high-yield investments when the money started disappearing. She said he was so convincing that her family initially defended him against the investigators, just like Sarah is defending him now. I spent hours going through all the documents Linda sent me. There were police reports, court transcripts, and victim impact statements from her parents. Mike had legally changed his middle name after getting out of prison, which is why his criminal record hadn't shown up when he applied for his current job. Linda also told me he had done this to at least 2 other families before hers, but those cases were settled out of court with non-disclosure agreements. I knew I had to tell Sarah everything. I drove to her house early the next morning with copies of all the documents. When I arrived, Sarah was alone. Mike was apparently at an early meeting with clients. I tried to calmly explain everything Linda had told me, showing her the court records and proof of his conviction. Instead of listening, Sarah completely broke down. She started screaming that I was trying to destroy her life and had fabricated all the documents. Then she dropped a bombshell. She said she's 3 months pregnant and accused me of trying to tear her family apart before her child is even born. She said the stress I was causing could harm her baby and threatened to never let me see my niece or nephew if I didn't drop everything. The news about her pregnancy hit me hard. I always dreamed we would raise our children together like best friends, just as we had been. Now I was standing in her kitchen, being told I might never meet my future niece or nephew. I left her house in tears, feeling more lost than ever. The funeral was scheduled for yesterday. I arranged everything according to Dad's wishes, his favorite hymns, flowers like the ones he used to plant with Mom, and photos from happier times throughout the service hall. I specifically instructed the funeral home staff not to allow Mike inside, showing them his photo. Sarah did show up, but she wasn't alone. Mike was with her, wearing a dark suit and carrying a wreath of flowers. When I tried to stop him at the door, Sarah started screaming hysterically about how I was keeping her child from saying goodbye to their grandfather. She was causing such a scene that people began coming out of the service to see what was happening. Our Uncle James and 2 of our cousins had to physically escort them out while Sarah screamed about how I would regret this. Several elderly relatives were visibly shaken by the confrontation. This was exactly what Dad wouldn't have wanted, his funeral turning into a spectacle. I somehow got through the service, but I couldn't stop thinking about how our family has fallen apart. After the funeral, things got even worse. Dad's lawyer, Mr. Peterson, called me with disturbing news. He said there had been suspicious activity on Dad's accounts just hours after he passed away, before the death certificate was even issued. Someone had attempted to transfer all the remaining money, nearly $400,000, to an offshore account. Thankfully, the bank's fraud department flagged the transactions as suspicious and blocked them. Mr. Peterson told me the bank's investigation traced the transfer attempts to an IP address matching Mike's home computer. They also found evidence that someone had tried to access Dad's online banking using his credentials multiple times in the hours after his death. The bank has frozen all the accounts pending a formal investigation. I'm now working with Mr. Peterson to file criminal charges against Mike. We have the evidence from the block transfers, plus everything Linda sent me about his previous conviction. The lawyer says this time Mike could face serious prison time since he's a repeat offender. Sarah keeps calling and texting, alternating between threats and pleas. She says if I go through with pressing charges, she'll make sure I never meet her child. She claims Mike is the victim of identity theft and someone is trying to frame him. She even suggested that maybe Linda is working with me to extort money from them. I'm heartbroken but feel I have to do this for Dad. He spent his final years worried about money because of Mike, and now Mike tried to steal what little was left right after Dad died. I can't let him get away with it again. But the thought of losing my sister and never meeting my niece or nephew is tearing me apart. The worst part is that Mom's jewelry is still missing. Dad died never knowing what happened to the ring he gave her on their wedding day. I keep thinking about how he asked me every few days if we had found it yet. I won't give up until I get justice for both our parents, even if it means losing my sister in the process. More updates will follow as things develop with the legal case. Update 2: The investigation into Mike has uncovered far more than any of us expected, and everything has spiraled into a complete nightmare. I need to share what's happened because it still feels surreal. 2 weeks ago, the police executed a search warrant at Mike's office. They had been building a case based on the evidence from Dad's accounts and the information about his previous conviction. What they found was staggering. Mike hadn't just been stealing from our family, he had been running an elaborate scheme targeting elderly clients through his financial advisory business. The police found dozens of files with altered financial statements, similar to the fake ones he had been sending Dad. They also discovered a hidden safe in his desk that contained jewelry, including our mom's missing pieces. Her wedding ring, the pearl necklace, and the diamond earrings were all there, along with jewelry belonging to other victims. The detective told me they found pieces reported stolen from at least 8 other families. When they showed me Mom's jewelry, I broke down completely. All those months of searching, watching Dad's hope fade every time we couldn't find them, and they were sitting in Mike's office the whole time. The detective said they found documentation suggesting Mike had been pawning pieces of jewelry, then buying them back when he needed to show them to suspicious family members. Sarah had to come to the police station to identify Mom's jewelry. When she saw the ring, she went pale and started shaking. She finally broke down and admitted something that made me physically sick. Mike had given her Mom's wedding ring months ago, claiming he had found it while helping Dad organize some boxes. She had been wearing it all this time, knowing how desperately we had been searching for it. She tried to justify it by saying Mike told her Dad had probably meant to give it to her since she was the older daughter, but forgot because of his grief. She said she convinced herself it was true because she wanted so badly to have a piece of Mom with her. I couldn't even look at her after this confession. But the biggest revelation came when the detective asked to speak with us privately. They had discovered Mike has another family, a wife and 3 kids in Michigan. He never actually divorced Linda, making his marriage to Sarah completely invalid. He had been living a double life, spending alternate weeks on business trips with each family. Sarah collapsed when she heard this. Everything she believed about her life for the past 5 years had been a lie. She confessed that she had lied about being pregnant, she had faked the pregnancy test to try to protect Mike and make me feel guilty about pressing charges. She thought if I believed she was having his baby, I would back off the investigation. The police investigation revealed a pattern going back even further than Linda had known. Before he went to prison the first time, Mike had pulled similar scams in 2 other states under different names. He would target wealthy elderly clients through his financial advisory work, gain their trust, and then either marry into their families or become close enough to be given power of attorney over their accounts. Sarah has moved in with our aunt temporarily. She's a mess, alternating between crying over Mike's betrayal and being angry at herself for not seeing through his lies. She finally showed me years of credit card statements revealing Mike had been spending thousands of dollars every month on luxury items and trips she knew nothing about. Now she's discovering he took out loans in her name that she's responsible for. Some of our relatives are urging me to forgive Sarah, saying she was as much a victim as Dad was. But I can't forget how she defended Mike even after seeing proof of what he did to Dad. I can't forget her wearing Mom's ring while we searched everywhere for it. I can't forget her trying to ruin Dad's funeral and lying about being pregnant to manipulate me. The prosecutor says they have enough evidence to charge Mike with multiple counts of fraud, theft, and identity theft. They're saying he could face up to 20 years in prison given his prior conviction and the scale of his crimes. They've also found evidence suggesting he has hidden money in offshore accounts, and they're working with federal authorities to trace it. Sarah is talking about cooperating with the prosecutors to testify against Mike. Her attorney says it might help her avoid liability for any of the fraudulent loans Mike took out in her name. She keeps trying to apologize to me, sending long texts about how sorry she is and how she wishes she could go back and change everything. I haven't responded to any of her messages. Maybe I'm being too hard on her, but every time I think about forgiving her, I remember Dad dying without ever seeing Mom's ring again, and my heart hardens. I'll post another update when there's news about the criminal case. Update 3: The situation with Mike and Sarah has finally reached its conclusion, though not in the way any of us could have predicted. Mike was arrested last week after trying to flee the country. The police caught him at the airport with fake passports and nearly $50,000 in cash. The investigation that started with Dad's stolen money uncovered a massive criminal enterprise. Over the past 15 years, Mike had defrauded at least 12 elderly victims across 4 states, stealing an estimated $3.5 million total. The prosecutor says he was running a sophisticated Ponzi scheme, using money stolen from new victims to pay back small amounts to previous victims who got suspicious. They found evidence that he has 2 other wives besides Sarah and Linda. Each of these women believed they were his only wife, and each had unknowingly helped him gain access to their family's money. One of these women lost her entire inheritance after Mike convinced her to invest it in fake business ventures. Sarah finally broke down and told me everything. Mike had been manipulating her from the start. He researched our family before approaching her at work, specifically targeting her because Dad had recently lost Mom and would be vulnerable. He spent months gathering information about our family dynamics and Mom's death before making his move. The truth about Mom's jewelry was even worse than we thought. Mike had started stealing pieces one at a time shortly after marrying Sarah, replacing them with convincing fakes. He did this so gradually that Dad never noticed the difference when he would look at the jewelry box. The real pieces were sold off to fund Mike's lavish lifestyle and gambling addiction. Sarah is cooperating fully with the prosecution now. She discovered Mike had taken out over $200,000 in loans using her social security number and forged signatures. Her credit is ruined, and she's facing bankruptcy. The financial advisor firm fired her when they learned she had known about some of Mike's dealings with clients but kept quiet. She tried to apologize to me again last week. She showed up at my house crying, saying she knows she can never make up for what she did but wants to try. She said she defended Mike for so long because admitting he was a criminal meant admitting she had helped him destroy our family. She couldn't face that truth until it was too late. But I'm not ready to forgive her. She asked to move in with me while she gets back on her feet, saying she can't afford her apartment anymore. Some family members think I should help her since she's also a victim, but they didn't see Dad's face every time he opened that empty jewelry box. They didn't hear him cry at night when he thought no one was listening. The prosecutor says Mike will likely get 25 to 30 years in prison given the scale of his crimes and his previous conviction. They found evidence linking him to even more victims, and the investigation is still ongoing. Sarah will have to testify against him at trial, but she's been granted immunity in exchange for her cooperation. I've decided to go no contact with Sarah for now. I told her I need time to process everything that's happened. Maybe someday I can forgive her, but right now the betrayal is too fresh. Every time I look at her, I see Dad's heartbroken face when we discovered Mom's jewelry was gone. I see her standing at his funeral, screaming and defending the man who stole from him. The police returned Mom's jewelry to me since I'm the executor of Dad's estate. Looking at these pieces now just makes me sad. They should have been with Dad in his final years, bringing him comfort and memories of Mom. Instead, they were locked in a criminal's safe while he died thinking they were lost forever. At least now we have justice for Dad, and Mike can't hurt any more families. But the price of that justice was losing my only sister, and I don't know if our family will ever truly recover from this.